It's Thursday, September 4th, 2008, and it's 4:20 somewhere in the world. I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville. Produced and distributed by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C., this is your NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Welcome to the most popular podcast regarding marijuana in all of America and all the world, featuring interviews with scientists, politicians, doctors, prohibition policy activists, regular cannabis consumers, musicians, and NORML staff and NORML's board of directors, along with music and comedy no other podcast can offer. You can always find out more about our show at our website, stash.norml.org, and continue the education and conversation on our blog as well. We're ending marijuana prohibition with education, one listener at a time. The podcasting and blogging technology for the NORML Daily Audio Stash is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. For your professional web design needs, visit redaphid.com. Hey, dear Stashers, sorry about the late post tonight. I was up late last night watching that speech by the Republican Vice President nominee, Governor Sarah Palin of Alaska. She says that in her youth, she did inhale back in the day, but she didn't like it and she doesn't do it anymore. Judging by that speech last night, I think she needs to inhale a little more. Might mellow her out just a little bit. Anyway, today is Thursday, so that means cannabis comedy here on the Daily Audio Stash. Terry Joyce will be joining us from Hollywood, California, along with Bill Bronner, a longtime comedian from the area, and no relation to the Dr. Bronner of the hemp soap fame. Also, I've got audio from my panel at the Hemposium at Seattle Hemp Fest a couple of weeks ago, a panel on marijuana in the media, which included Dominic Holden from The Stranger in Seattle and from NORML, David Knott from Reason Magazine, Mason Tvert from Safer Choice in Colorado, and our own Steve Bloom from celebstoner.com. So check out the opinions on how marijuana is portrayed in the media that I'll have for you in that panel. All right, folks, 2 days left until I've got to go to Portland Hempstock in Portland, Oregon. If you'd like more information on Portland Hempstock, check out hempstalk.org. That's HEMPSTALK, like a stalk. Hempstock.org. I'll be speaking there and presenting more information on cannabis in a couple of our Hemposium panels. So sit back and relax, grab your favorite piece, and load up some kush. It's time for your NORML Daily Audio Stash. Now it's time to take a look at the latest stories about marijuana from news organizations across America and around the world in our NORML Daily Audio Stash, Hemp Headlines. Drug czar turns pot smokers into hard drug addicts. The new National Survey on Drug Use and Health, or NSDUH, from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA, for 2007 is now online. I wonder why it was released without much fanfare during the landfall of a hurricane and the beginning of the Republican National Convention. Surely the drug warriors would prefer the news of their incredible successes not get buried beneath so many other headlines, right? Let's see what major accomplishments have been achieved by the latest drug czar, John Walters, in the 5 years he has been on the job from 2002 to 2007. In 2002, of the population aged 12 and over, there were 19.5 million users of, quote, any illicit drug in the past month. In 2007, the figure is 19.9 million. In 2002, in that same demographic, there were 14.5 million marijuana users in the past month. In 2007, the figure is 14.4 million. So what would that headline be? Drug czar reduces monthly pot smokers by 100,000, but hard drug users increase by 400,000. In 2002, of people 12 and over, there were 92 million who have ever used marijuana in their lifetime. In 2007, the number has topped 100 million for the first time. In 2002, 614,000 people were arrested for possession-only marijuana crimes. In 2007, 739,000 were arrested. Headline: Marijuana users top 100 million for first time, despite 20% increase in arrests. In 2002, for kids 12 to 17, the percentage of those who perceived a great risk of smoking marijuana once or twice a week was 51.5%. For heroin, it was 58.5%, and for LSD, it was 76.2%. In 2007, the marijuana number had increased to 54.7%, but the heroin number dropped to 57% and the LSD number dropped to 74.2%. Headline: More kids see risk in frequent pot smoking, but less risk in frequent heroin and acid use. Now remember, the reason that Walters tells us we have to arrest people for smoking weed is because of the children. Won't you think of the children? What kind of message do you want to send to the children? Only by keeping marijuana illegal and arresting its users can we get the message through to the kids that marijuana's use is unhealthy and harmful. Well, in 2002, 15.2 million teens aged 12 to 17 used tobacco products. In 2007, the number has dropped to 12.4 million. Headline: Teen tobacco use drops 18%, while adult tobacco arrests remain steady at 0. John Walters, as drug czar for the past 5 years, has spent $12.6 billion taxpayer dollars and made 3,396,100 arrests for marijuana possession, and yet marijuana use remains steady. Tobacco has been legal the whole time, and through education and regulation, its use has plummeted. Headline: Drug czar John Walters is a colossal failure. Plea could send Arizona marijuana church founders to prison. From the Arizona Star. The founders of an Arizona church that deifies marijuana have pleaded guilty to 2 criminal charges and are now each facing up to 20 years in prison. But Dan and Mary Quaintance, founders of the Church of Cognizance, remain confident that they will not end up behind bars. Although sentencing in federal court is set to take place within the next 75 days, the Quaintances are confident an appeal will keep them out of prison. The couple, on August 18th, pleaded guilty to 2 counts relating to their 2006 federal arrest. 1 count of conspiracy with intent to distribute 200 pounds or more of a mixture or substance containing a detectable amount of marijuana, and 1 count of possession with the intent to distribute 100 pounds or more of a substance containing a detectable amount of marijuana, as well as aiding and abetting. Dan Quaintance believes freedom of religion will prevail and predicts the case could go as far as the U.S. Supreme Court. The Quaintances must not have been carrying their $250 religious use get-out-of-jail-free card. Look, I wish Dan and Mary all the luck in the world. I really do hope their case goes to the Supreme Court. But I strongly doubt they will hear the case. They don't have to. They can let lower rulings stand. And even if they did, I doubt they would rule in favor of cannabis religious freedom. Yes, they should, but this is politics we're talking about. This is a court that injected itself without precedent into the 2000 election in Florida to decide the presidency contrary to the Constitution's mandate of state control of elections, and then declared that the opinion in Bush v. Gore was a one-time only decision that couldn't be construed as precedent for any cases in the future. Do you really think that a court that will bend the most sacrosanct laws and standards to select our highest office holder for partisan reasons is going to rule that anybody who calls their home church and calls their stash sacrament can grow, smoke, and possess marijuana legally? I believe that everyone, from the most devout believer to the most cynical atheist, like me, has the absolute natural right to make use of any plant and to put in their bodies whatever they choose. Crafting a religious use exception doesn't secure that right for me and millions of others. In a sense, it criminalizes non-belief. I've said it before. It is insane to think that if a California cancer survivor and a Jamaican Rasta share a joint with me, you'd have a patient, a believer, and a criminal. It is insane to say I don't get the right to smoke weed because I'm too healthy and don't worship.
Stupid stoner stories.
As a public service, NORML reminds you that smoking marijuana will not make one stupid. However, some stupid people do smoke marijuana. Don't be one of those stoners that make the rest of us look bad. Learn your lesson from today's
Stupid stoner story.
traffic stop nets 110 pounds of marijuana.
Socorro, New Mexico. Reserve Magistrate Court Judge Clayton Atwood presided over a preliminary hearing Tuesday for a man who was charged with 2 felonies after a state police officer discovered more than 100 pounds of marijuana during a traffic stop in August. Edward Tossa, age 36 of Michigan, is charged with 1 count each of trafficking a controlled substance and possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute, a third-degree felony. Trafficking of more than 100 pounds is a second-degree felony. At about 9 p.m. August 14th, New Mexico State Police Officer Michael Forg stopped a van for speeding in Camado. Forg said the driver appeared nervous and hesitant. The officer smelled marijuana, and after the driver gave permission to open the van doors, further investigation of the van revealed about 110 pounds of marijuana.
Why, sure, officer. Go right ahead and open the doors of my van without a warrant so you can discover the evidence of the second-degree felony I'm committing. You have a right to remain silent. You have a right to refuse a search. If you've got 110 pounds of weed in your van, you should use those rights. And you shouldn't be speeding either. One law at a time, pal. You're not going to be any more arrested or more convicted by asserting your rights. If you're gonna go down, why not waste some police time that it takes to hold you, get a warrant, bring a dog, and then discover your felony? Maybe they mess up the procedure and your excellent NORML legal committee defense attorney gets you off on a technicality. Instead, you decide to make the case against yourself for the police. Did you think they'd go easier on you? If you give the cops permission to search, you just kneecapped your defense attorney. No prosecutor is going to let you off easy because you cooperated. You're a 36-year-old man. I'd expect this from someone half your age, but you should know better.
Marijuana is an addictive drug which produces in its users insanity, criminality, and death.
Marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind.
If the hideous monster Frankenstein came face to face with the monster of marijuana, he would drop dead from fright.
Reefer madness.
Representative Heather Wilson, Republican of New Mexico, spouts drug war lies. A stasher from New Mexico wrote to his representative, Heather Wilson, to urge her to support Barney Frank's H.R. 5843 to end federal penalties for personal adult marijuana possession. Here's her reply, with my snarky replies interspersed.
Dear Max, thank you for contacting me about medical marijuana. I appreciate hearing from you. I am opposed to the legalization of marijuana or any other FDA Schedule I drug for medicinal purposes. While I respect the views of residents of the states that have adopted legislation regarding the medical use of marijuana,
which includes the voters of the state you represent in the federal Congress, New Mexico, so much for that respect,
the bulk of our law enforcement community insists that legalization will hamper their efforts to prevent the spread of drugs in our communities. Their views count a great deal with me.
Of course, because when I'm trying to make tough decisions that affect the medical privacy and well-being of sick and disabled New Mexicans, the first person I consult with is a cop. Now, if I wanted advice on how to bust a criminal gang of car thieves, that's when I solicit the advice of a doctor.
A synthetic form of marijuana, commonly referred to as THC or Marinol.
Congressman Wilson, THC is the psychoactive compound in both Marinol and marijuana. And nearly every medical marijuana patient asked will tell you they prefer the natural marijuana.
Has been approved as an anti-nausea agent for chemotherapy patients and as an appetite stimulant for patients with AIDS wasting syndrome.
Tell me, Congresswoman, how you manage to swallow and keep down a pill when your chemo is making you vomit uncontrollably. And did you know that Marinol pills cost $20 each and aren't covered by most health insurance? Supposing a patient needs 3 pills a day, you think an $1,800 monthly pill expense for a disabled person on a fixed income is a better solution than growing a plant indoors for a $200 monthly light bill?
There are important differences, however, between THC and marijuana.
Yes, there are. THC is the highly psychoactive cannabinoid in marijuana. Marijuana also contains cannabidiol, cannabigerol, cannabinol, cannabichromine, cannabicyclol, and tetrahydrocannabivarin. Some of these cannabinoids help to mitigate the psychoactivity of delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol. Marinol has nothing but THC, so the psychoactive effect is much stronger than an equivalent amount of natural marijuana. Representative Wilson, have you ever smoked marijuana or taken Marinol? I've done both. I've smoked the diggityest of the dank, the most chronic of the ganja, and the herbiest of the herb, and nothing has ever messed me up as bad as one Marinol pill. I'm a 270-pound man who smoked marijuana weekly since 1990 and daily since 2005 with the stoniest stoners in Potland, Oregon, and Marinol kicked my ass. I've never felt the paranoia, depression, and suicidal ideation from natural herb that I felt with Marinol. And that's what you'd prefer a cancer, AIDS, glaucoma, pain, seizure, or nausea patient to endure?
Specifically, THC is stable and can be prescribed in quantified dosage amounts. Street marijuana cannot be specifically prescribed, and this can lead to overuse or ineffective use.
Thanks for pointing out the harms created by prohibition of marijuana. You won't let us cultivate and refine it in quantified dosage amounts. Yet, in California, where there is a quasi-legal market in medical marijuana, growers are turning out strains with very well-documented amounts of THCs and CBDs and so on. And just like in Amsterdam, where there is a quasi-legal market, we're finding that given a choice, marijuana users prefer milder strains to the more potent ones.
The overarching charge to any physician is, first do no harm. That is a test smoked marijuana cannot pass. There is no scientific evidence that qualifies smoked marijuana to be called medicine. Further, there is no support in the medical literature that marijuana, or indeed any medicine, should be smoked as the preferred form of administration.
Good point. Inhaling the smoke of any burning vegetable matter is not a healthy decision. However, inhaling burning cannabis smoke is far safer than inhaling burning tobacco smoke. So, what say you about the vaporization of marijuana, which merely heats cannabinoids to their vaporization point, yet alleviates all the harms of carbonizing, burning, or smoking the marijuana? Or what about oral administration through a tincture or an edible? What about the use of marijuana as a topical antiseptic, which shows promise in fighting antibiotic-resistant strains of MRSA and tuberculosis? See, you have to say smoked marijuana because of the growing body of reliable scientific evidence showing the medical efficacy of cannabis.
I truly believe with safer treatments readily available, the social costs of marijuana legalization far outweigh any potential benefits.
In other words, because some people might smoke pot and get high, cancer and AIDS patients should have to suffer with a less effective, more expensive pharmaceutically approved pill. And what are these social costs? Increased revenue through taxation of marijuana and savings on law enforcement totaling $10 to $14 billion annually? Undercutting the profits of criminal gangs and terrorists? Freeing up scarce law enforcement resources to go after violent criminals? Giving our farmers a lucrative new cash crop in hemp? Allowing thousands of college kids to get loans and scholarships? Reducing the number of deaths from crashes, violence, and poisoning from the alcohol people are forced to choose over marijuana? Saving our environment by eliminating the profit motive to set up clandestine illegal grows in national forests? Helping to kick our addiction to foreign oil through hemp biodiesel? Saving our children by requiring an ID check before they buy pot? What are these social costs? Well, the social cost Representative Wilson wants us to infer is that legal marijuana will lead to a skyrocketing problem of drug abuse. As if there are people out there thinking, man, I really want to smoke pot, but it's illegal. Maybe someday when it's legal, I'll smoke some. Do you really think non-pot smokers will really start toking once it is legal? I don't. Everyone who wants to smoke pot already is. The problem for Heather Wilson and other drug warriors regarding medical marijuana is that it unravels the whole drug war house of cards. If there is legal medical marijuana, how then do you justify arresting a person for not being sick?